All right. Well, welcome everyone to the Stakeouts and Shakedowns podcast. Feels good to be back. I took an unintended hiatus from this program. I had the best of intentions to do an episode following our wonderful spooky Halloween episode of Dead Heat. I had already picked out what I was going to do in November and my guest in November. And then November got really busy. If you want to know a little bit about my life, I tested for my black belt in karate in November and things got a little crazy. And then in December, it was the holidays, it was Christmas. And so that got busy. And then I'm just going to tell you, January and February felt like they didn't exist. So here we are, March 2026, and this podcast is back from its unintended hiatus. I hope you enjoyed your break. I am Wes Clifton. I'm the host of the Stakeouts and Shakedowns podcast, a buddy cop film review / history podcast. I'm just a movie nerd who loves to watch movies and talk to my friends about them, and I'm really glad you're here. My guest today is a very special guest. It's my girlfriend, the wonderful and talented Crystal Penton. Mi amor, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
I am doing very, very well. I'm glad that you wanted to do this.
Me too. I think it's going to be fun.
Crystal, I know a lot about you. Maybe tell the listeners at home anything you'd like them to know about you.
So I think I'm kind of different than your usual guest because I'm not like full-on movie nerd like many of your other friends have been. So things I'm into are like quilts and sewing, Jane Austen. I like to drink tea and just kind of like have a cozy vibe. I don't know. What else?
No, I like that because I feel like that's already bringing a particular brand of highbrow to this podcast that's sometimes missing. Just a little tea, a little quilting, a little Jane Austen, bringing that on in to mix in with my canon films, watching people blow stuff up, Jean-Claude Van Damme vibe that I usually have going on. So pretty great.
I think they can complement each other,
yes,
right?
Yes. So the fact that you are not a traditional movie nerd, was the reason why I was kind of surprised when you said you wanted to do an episode. So just to tell the people, this episode, which we haven't said yet what we're doing today, but this episode is what we were going to do in November. We got together, we watched the movie, we were ready to go, and then everything just got crazy. And so now we are just bringing that forward into the year 2026. So Crystal, I think that the thing that I like to do on this podcast to let the people at home know a little bit about the guests is to ask a handful of questions, which I will ask you now. So First off, what are some of your favorite movies?
So the first one that comes to mind when I think favorite movies is actually Last of the Mohicans. I love that movie. And we recently missed an opportunity to see it in the theater, and I'm still sad about that.
I wasn't going to bring it up.
Well, I was, because it hurts me in my heart.
It's very tragic.
I know. Another one of my favorite movies is Little Women. Both the 90s version and the newer version that came out in like 2019 or 2020. I think Little Women is just like my favorite story, like book, and then to see it as a movie, they're both really good in different ways, both those versions. What else?
Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah, probably Pride and Prejudice. The 2005 one is, I love the score to that, and I just think it's like one of the most beautifully shot movies ever. You saw it with me recently.
I did. We are opening. We have opened each other's eyes to so many films.
So true.
You have seen The Glimmer Man and Invasion USA, and I have seen Little Women and Pride and Prejudice. So we're doing really great. So yeah, great. Well, Crystal, so what is? Do you have a favorite buddy cop film?
Well, so I had to look at your list because I was like, well, I can't even think of what's a buddy cop film.
You mean the Stakeouts and Shakedowns list on Letterboxd? That's a really good and comprehensive list that everybody should go check out.
It has like 140 something movies on there.
Yeah, that one.
So I think 3 stood out to me. So Rush Hour, I feel like, is definitely on the top of that list because that one came out. Was it in the 90s when that came out?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were kids, and it was just kind of like that time in life when like movies were king, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And it was a big one. Hot Fuzz was another one.
Awesome.
And then you haven't seen this one, I don't think, but 21 Jump Street with
Correct. I have
Channing
not seen it.
Tatum and Jonah Hill. So funny.
I have
Love
not
that
seen
one.
it, but it is on the list because the list is meant to be wide and comprehensive. But no, I've actually not seen that. I'm told it's good. Rush Hour, you may or may not know this about me. When I went to college, I got my first DVD player, and I had to make a very difficult decision to select the the DVDs that I would be bringing with me to college, and I
You could
decided
only
on
take 2?
I don't know. I had to go buy two. I had no DVDs, is what I'm
Oh,
saying. I had my first DVD player. I had to go buy some DVDs. So actually I had 3 because somehow I ended up with like this like punk rock. I can't remember if it was like a Christian punk or just a regular punk rock, like variety DVD of like videos. But also then movie wise, I went to the store and I bought Rush Hour and Dude, Where's My Car? That's where my head was going into undergrad. Well, awesome.
uh,
Those are great picks. And then finally, are there any movies that you've seen recently? They don't have to be recent movies that you would recommend for the listeners?
does it have to be a movie? Can I do TV?
Oh yeah, go for it.
So right now I'm watching, it's on PBS Masterpiece app or whatever, but I've been watching a show called Miss Scarlet and the Duke, and then later it just becomes Miss Scarlet because apparently the Duke leaves the show. I've not
See you
gotten to
later,
that part
Duke.
yet. But it's a Victorian era mystery series where Miss Eliza Scarlet is the first female private detective in London. So that's been kind of fun.
And you love a good mystery.
I do love a mystery. Because the other one I was going to say is I recently watched the new season of Lincoln Lawyer, and that was really good.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I watched that as well. Nice. So you've been TVing it up.
I have, because I also watched Bridgerton, which I loved, but I don't know that that's really the vibe for your podcast listener.
Look, we're not discriminating on here, okay? We want a wide range of listeners with a wide range of perspectives, and so it's totally fine. Well, cool. I have some recs as well. When you brought up TV shows, I'm just going to stick with what I originally was going to say because otherwise I'll go off on a tangent. Well, actually, I will. I'll go off on a little tangent. So for one thing, on Friday, so I'll just go ahead and tell people you've seen it. You've already had to click on this episode. This episode, we're going to be talking about The Heat. And so on Friday, we went to the Retro Film Series. Shout out Retro Film Series to see Miss Congeniality. So we're having a real Sandy Bullock weekend over here. But so we went to see Miss Congeniality. I'd never seen it, and I really liked that movie. You had told me you thought I would like it, and we went to see it, and I really did like it.
Yeah, there were a couple moments where you like legitimately laughed out loud, and
It was very funny. It was very funny. Also, it had one of my favorite actors, Michael Caine, was in the movie.
And Ernie, what's his name?
Oh yeah, Ernie Hudson. Yeah,
Yeah.
He's a Ghostbuster. He's a Ghostbuster. I met him once. He was a very nice guy.
What's his name is going to be a theme of this podcast where
that's fine.
I don't know any of the
problem.
actors' names.
It's no problem. Well, how about another theme is I'm going to switch back and forth between calling people by their character name and their actor name. And that's just, it is what it is. So anyway, so that's one recommendation. I really liked Miss Congeniality. But so I will say the ones I had intended to plug, everybody, if you haven't already, you need to go to Netflix and you need to watch the movie The Rip. It was so good. It was a great way to start my year off. The Rip. It's on Netflix. It's got Ben Affleck. It's got Matt Damon. So it's got Matt Damon. I wish it had Damon Wayans also. That would be great. It's got Ben Affleck and Matt Damon and a lot of other people. And it's just a really suspenseful, great film that I loved. We went to see Crime 101 in the theater, and I really, really enjoyed Crime 101 as well. So that's another one I would really recommend people check out. It felt like if they took Grand Theft Auto 5 or maybe Grand Theft Auto Online and somebody was just like, let's make this into a movie but take out all the goofiness and just make it a straight crime thriller. It was really good. And then the other thing I'm going to recommend, just because we did this weekend lose the great Chuck Norris, and so I am going to recommend to everyone my personal favorite Chuck Norris film, which is Code of Silence. I think everybody should just watch whatever Chuck Norris film speaks to your heart in tribute, but I'm putting out Code of Silence. Same director who would later do Under Siege and The Fugitive. I almost want to say Witness every time. The Fugitive, and just a really a great film. Also an early appearance from Dennis Farina. Just a great movie, I think. Great score by David Michael Frank. So anyways, check out Code of Silence. All right. So we are going to take just a tiny little break, and we're going to come back on the other side of that break, and we're going to be talking about The Heat.
Sir, I don't understand. I've closed more cases than any agent here.
You are a solid agent, but you're not a team player. None of the other agents like you.
Wait for my 3 count. 1, 2. Unbelievable.
You got a situation in Boston. I'm sending you up.
FBI, we recently got intel that you brought in a dealer, Terrell Rojas.
Hey, look who's here!
Detective Mullins isn't back from lunch yet.
I'm sure you won't mind.
Well, he's a she.
Oh, it's on! She's crazy!
I'm Special Agent Sarah Ashburn. Are you about to be interrogated by an officer?
I am an officer, and that's my perp.
Could you just close the door on the way out?
I'll shut the door on you. Will you lay down here, put your head in the door, and I'll slam it about 157,000 times.
Oh, girl, you better run.
I'm gonna make you bend over, and I'm gonna reach up into your pocket and get the keys to your house. And then I'm gonna drive there and stab you with your own badge. That's what I'm gonna do. Let's loosen that up. Surprise!
Come on, man.
Get out, bull in China shop.
What part of out do you not understand?
You wanna go out? We'll take you out. I can't hold you.
All right, let's pull him up. Come on.
No, wait, I'm not getting anywhere, really. I can't lift him up.
He's all right? The metal car broke his fall? That was pretty awesome.
You are killing us out there. You don't fit in.
I am a federal agent.
What are those?
They're Spanx. They're Spanx. They just hold everything together.
Why? What's gonna come popping out?
All right, we are back, and tonight we are talking about the 2013 action comedy classic, The Heat. This movie was, let's see, it was directed by Paul, I never know if you pronounce it Feig or Feig. I'm saying Paul Feig. I think that's how you're supposed to do it. He's a very dapper man, always wearing a suit. Paul Feig. He was the director. The score was done by a composer that I'm not super familiar with named Michael Andrews. I did look him up, and he had done a lot of films, actually, including Donnie Darko, Out Cold, probably most apropos of tonight. He worked on Bridesmaids and also the movie Neighbors. It was written by Kate Dippold, who was also a writer on Parks and Recreation. It stars everyone. It stars it stars Sandra Bullock, Melissa McCarthy, Marlon Wayans, Michael Rappaport, Taron Killam, Jane Curtin, Michael McDonald, not the singer, the guy who played Stewart on Mad TV, Tom Wilson, Chris Gethard, and like 1,000 more people. Like when they go to the family dinner scene, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, just like there's just like a billion people at the table, and you're like, oh, it's that guy, it's that guy.
Yeah. So when I was watching this, I just like made a list of people, because it's like one of those movies for me anyway, where like you recognize the actor, but you like don't really. They may not be like a big name actor, right? But they've been in stuff that you know them from, and so my list is like Bea from Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah,
because I don't know her name.
It's Caitlin Olsen.
Yeah.
Did you notice that there was a new kid on the block at the dinner table for the?
Of course, the first. Do you not remember the first time we watched it? And I went,
guess.
"Is that Joey McIntyre?" And you were like, "Who's Joey McIntyre?"
Yeah. I did not know who it was. I know only one. I know one new kid on the block, and his name is Donald Wahlberg. So it stars everyone, and Bill Burr. I left out Bill Burr.
He was one of the brothers.
Yep, it was.
And the third brother was in an episode of New Girl.
Oh, and you're a resident New Girl expert.
Apparently, he was in an episode where Jess is like teaching in college, and they are like writing stories, and he writes this story, and they think that he's going to murder her.
Oh my!
You don't remember this one?
No, I really liked that show, but I watched like the first few seasons a long time ago, and I don't remember a lot about it.
Well, so yeah, shenanigans ensue as they do on that show. So
Awesome. And this movie was released on June the 28th, 2013. It had a budget of $43 million, and its box office, it brought in a whopping $229.9 million. So this movie definitely made its money back and made a great profit of many millions.
that's so interesting because I don't feel like it's super well known necessarily.
Yeah, it's weird. Well, I think maybe, and we can maybe get into this, but I think maybe it might get a little overshadowed by the success just previous of Bridesmaids, maybe. But yeah. But so
Yeah.
it was a big success, and it has a Rotten Tomatoes critic score of 66% and a 71% audience score. So I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, listeners at home, how I feel about the movie. I think both those scores are way too low. I think this is a great movie. But before we get into our thoughts on the movie, let me just real quickly, if I can get some good light here, read the brief plot description from the back of my Blu-ray. Oscar winner Sandra Bullock and Oscar nominee Melissa McCarthy are a dynamite duo in this outrageously funny comedy from the director of Bridesmaids, Paul Feig. Uptight FBI special agent Sarah Ashburn, played by Sandra Bullock, and foul-mouthed Boston cop Shannon Mullins, played by Melissa McCarthy, couldn't be more incompatible. But when they join forces to bring down a ruthless drug lord, they become the last thing anyone expected. ... Buddies.
So perfect.
Yeah, it's so perfect. Especially for anybody following along, the original name of this podcast was going to be Hey Buddy. So we love some buddies on here. So Crystal, I have a little history with this film. But remind me, what is your history with this film? Had you seen it before? What's your history with this movie?
I had seen it before. I think I may have seen it in the theater when it came out, because I do love Sandra Bullock. I also really like Melissa McCarthy. I first knew of Melissa McCarthy from watching Gilmore Girls, and so she was, I don't know, well known to me, I guess, when this movie came out. But I feel like this movie for her is like in her era of when she first became, like, got her big break. I feel like in Bridesmaids, both that character and then this character, they're like gross versions of her. And I was like, I just always thought that was kind of strange, because that's not how she was in Gilmore Girls, but she was always very funny.
So I've not seen Gilmore Girls, and I've not seen Bridesmaids. I know I probably should, because everyone says it's really good, and I really did.
It is
enjoy
really
this
good.
movie. I think at the time, I hate to like tattle on myself, but I mean, anybody who's heard me on this podcast talk about how much I love things blowing up and people getting kicked in the face, this probably won't surprise them. I feel like when it came out, I was like, that's a girl movie. And so I didn't go see it. But it's supposed to be a really good movie. And I think now, being grown up and mature, I think I would enjoy it. So my history with this movie is I did also see it in the theater. And at the time, I remember thinking it was fine. It was just fine. I didn't really have like it didn't make a big impact on me. And so I knew I was going to do it for this podcast. And this is something we can get into a little later, because this is not the only one, but there are relatively few buddy cop films that really represent, like, have female representation
Right.
in the leads. And so I knew that I wanted to do this movie as part of the podcast. So anyways, this was the episode we were going to do back in November. So you and I got together and watched it back in November. And I laughed uproariously the whole time. And I wasn't expecting it, because I remember just kind of thinking like, this is fine. But I laughed so hard the whole time. I don't know if it was just a great company, or if it's, like I said, I have matured as a film watcher. I don't know if
It's
somehow
also just legitimately very funny.
yeah, I don't know if maybe it's because I watched the unrated version instead of the theatrical, which today I noticed is only about 3 minutes difference anyway. I'm assuming just some of the really crass stuff they had to cut out for the theater, because this movie is crass.
I know. That was one of the things I was kind of like surprised about, even watching it the second time, because I watched it again earlier this week, since it had been so long since we'd seen it back in November. And I was like, man, it just surprises me sometimes, like how crass it is.
I don't want to be like a pearl clutching podcast where I'm like,
No,
but
it
but
just
no.
it's unexpected.
Oh no, but what I was gonna say was it makes it hard to it makes it hard, I think, for me to talk about some of my favorite lines, because I do try to keep this podcast somewhere around PG-13. It's okay to say some swear words every now and again, but I'm not trying to just be like a constant bleep factory. So it does make it hard to.
I feel like my favorite lines do not have cursing in them.
Well, once again, as we've discussed, you're much more highbrow and cultured than I am, because one of my favorite lines, we'll get to this later, but one of my favorite lines in my notes, I don't like taking notes when I'm watching movies. I'm trying to watch a movie and have a good time, but I did take a few. And one, I just wanted to remember a line, and we'll talk about this later, so I'll just set it up for you right now. My note says, "Toilet humans." So so that's
I'm not even sure what that means.
Toilet humans? Well, we'll get there. And if we don't get there, then the listeners will be like, he never addressed toilet humans, and that'll be fine with me. All right. So that's my history with the movie, though. Like, I've now seen it 3 times, once in the theater when I thought it was just fine. Once when we watched it back in November when I laughed uproariously and thought I was going to roll off the couch. And then watching it by myself.
I laughed a lot out loud by myself.
Me too. I just think it's really funny. I think that Sandra Bullock, as we talked about the other day, is a really likable and great actress, and she is perfectly cast as the kind of the straight man, if you will, in this comedy duo. And I just think that Melissa McCarthy is really funny. She really delivers her. I was looking at her filmography, and I'll tell you, I've not seen a lot of her movies, and maybe I should. Like I've seen this one, and I've seen the Ghostbusters, like that. I guess you call it remake,
which you didn't really like.
Well, I feel like that movie is a little contentious, and once again, we'll get into this. I definitely didn't want to be seen as one of those dudes who didn't like that movie. I feel like at the time there were a lot of like internet misogynists. Like, I know it'll surprise everyone to know that like nerds are.
Well, I don't feel like
have
that's
a lot of
why
misogyny.
you didn't like it.
I didn't, but I tried really hard at the time to not be one of those people who was like, no, I don't like this. These long 80s. But at the same time, I thought the Ghostbusters remake was just fine. It was just fine, which, as I've said, I thought that about this movie. So maybe I need to go back and rewatch it. But as of now, I thought it was okay, but it wasn't great. Yeah, so that's our history with the movie. Well, I think we've just already started the next thing I was going to talk about, which is, what did you think of this film overall?
I really enjoyed this film. Like I said, there were several moments where I just like laughed out loud alone in my house watching it, which is kind of my favorite thing.
Yeah, it made me really laugh out loud, but also so it's extremely funny, but also I just think it's a really good movie. I think that the actors turn in some great performances. I was really impressed by the back and forth, kind of the chemistry between the two leads. I think that's what makes a buddy cop movie typically.
Yeah.
I mean, because you have to kind of put yourself in a world where, like, I'm a huge, well, as you know, and this comes as no surprise to you, but I'm a huge like Law and Order fan. I love police procedurals. A lot of the books I read are going to be police procedurals. Even though I just picked up that Hard Ticket to Hawaii novelization, and I tell you what, excited about that possibly being my summer read. But so I like a lot of police procedurals. And so when you watch a movie like this, and really a lot of buddy cop movies, you kind of have to like get out of that mindset. Like, you're not living in the real world. They're not following the laws. They're not following proper police procedure.
That was one of the things that I noted early on. I was like, because I've been listening to a lot of Small Town Dicks podcast, which is real detectives talking about like solving their crimes. And there were multiple times where I was like, no, that would not work.
These cases are getting thrown out of court for sure.
Yes.
But I think that a buddy cop movie, you have to suspend your disbelief or whatever a little bit. But they really rely on the chemistry between the leads, and I think that this was really well done. According to, I got a little mixed messaging when I was researching for this, because one place kind of made out like at first there were some problems with contracts, and so it took a while to get the lead actors like on board. But then when I was watching some of the special features, or maybe it was, no, I think I read some interviews with Kate Dippold, the writer, and she was talking about how actually it was presented to her. She had this like spec script. she wasn't sure who was going to star in it, and somebody told her, they were like, well, actually Melissa McCarthy and Sandra Bullock are looking to do a movie together, so we should approach them to do this. So, you know.
Yeah, I actually looked up Melissa McCarthy's like film, what do you call that?
Her filmography.
Filmography. Yes, thank you. Because in my mind, she was in the Ocean's 8 movie with Sandra Bullock, but she's not.
Well, I did like that movie. I like that movie.
But
Yeah.
I feel like she would have been good in that movie.
She would have been good in that movie. Yeah. She would have been good in that movie. I don't remember if that, I guess that movie's kind of more, it's more action than comedy, right? I mean, I know it's
feel like
funny in a way, but
It's kind of like the George Clooney ones where there's
Yeah.
like funny moments, but it's really more about like the heist, right?
well, as you know, Crystal, my big familiarity with Ocean's 11 is through the original, with the Rat Pack. So
Oh my
as
gosh.
you know, you're not the only one who likes the classics. And the
I've
finer
never
things.
seen that one. no.
Well, you really need to. You know, I own an embarrassing amount of like copies of that movie. Like over the course of time, I would like upgrade whenever a new version would come out, and so I just have like, I know that'll come as a shock to you. But you know what's funny is they're almost all on DVD for some reason. I think maybe one of them's on Blu-ray. It's not like some movies where I have like the VHS, the DVD, the Blu-ray. Like these are just different DVDs. I think I've given some of them away over the course of time because I was like, I don't really need all these Ocean's 11 DVDs. But anyways, what was I saying? Oh yeah, we both really like this movie, and I'm glad. I just thought it was, and what I was going to say was, I think as someone who's seen a pretty good amount of buddy cop movies, I think it's just a really good buddy cop movie. Like it's a really good example of the genre, which I don't know. Obviously, that's a little special to me, and I just really enjoyed it. So enough of that fanning out. So the first question that I think is pretty reasonable to ask about any buddy cop film is, what do we think of our two main characters, Ashburn and Mullins? Once again, we've kind of been talking about that a little bit already, but let's talk a little bit about the characters and kind of what we thought about them. What were some of your thoughts about Ashburn and Mullins, aka Sandy Bullock and Melissa McCarthy?
Yeah. So when the movie first starts and Sandy Bullock, like, so she's the FBI agent, right? And
Yes.
they are on like the SWAT teams coming out and they're like doing this bust. And she is so annoying in that scene, I thought.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I kind of hate her a little bit, like just a little bit. But then I don't know, she comes around and she's not as bad going through the rest of the movie. But I did find that interesting that I was like, she was just under my skin at the start of it.
Well, and I think that is an instance of Sandra Bullock being really a great actress, because I think that's the intention, and she does a really good job. Like, she is arrogant.
Yes.
I like that you said she's under your skin, because she's under all the other FBI agents' skins. Like, there's so much like visible eye rolling, and like you can tell they all just cannot stand her, and it's because she is just so arrogant and like overconfident.
Because you had mentioned on Friday that Miss Congeniality reminded you a little bit of this, and I was like, I feel like they're very different characters. Like, she's so arrogant in this movie, and like her FBI character in Miss Congeniality is like, she pisses off her boss because of a decision that she makes, but her other like agents that she's around, there's more camaraderie. They don't like hate her guts.
Yeah, well, I was actually, don't worry, I was going to come clean. I was going to say, okay, upon watching this, I recalled that exchange from Friday, and I was going to tell you that you were in fact right. They are very different characters. They are very different characters, but they're both FBI agents. Okay, they're both FBI
They're
agents.
definitely both.
She loves to play FBI agents. But yeah, she's more of kind of a slob tomboy type, in some ways like a less rude version of the character type that Melissa McCarthy's playing in this movie, but she's also good at her job. She's just under recognized in Miss Congeniality, whereas in this one she's recognized, but people don't like her. They're like, we just know, but no one likes you. So
I feel like Melissa McCarthy's character is a little bit the same way, but for totally different reasons.
My description, I said that Ashburn is arrogant and initially very unlikable. Mullins is brash and mean / rude. She's just very rude. And I mean, once again, she's not arrogant like that, but man, there are just moments where you're like, dang, she is really rude to people. And she doesn't, that part, she doesn't get better. Like, I can't remember
No.
when it is, but there's a part at the end. I don't even, it's towards the end of the movie. Somebody's walking. I think it's when they're in the hospital, actually, not to skip too far ahead, but when her brother gets shot and she's in the hospital and she's like walking out, she's like, I'm going to go catch the bad guy. And a nurse comes up and she's got a cup of water and she just slaps the cup of water out of her hand. I was like, dang.
They're
no
really
reason for
mean to that nurse. There's that one like blonde-headed nurse, and they're
Yeah.
terrible to
Well,
her
so that's
the whole
that's
time.
Kate Dippold. That's the writer of the film.
Oh, really?
The blonde ER nurse. Yeah, she wrote the film. So she asked for it in her own writing. But yeah. So but then my thought was, and this is what I liked. I think that these characters, so you don't have to give in a comedy, if you just want to be funny and say outrageous things, you don't have to give the characters a lot of depth. But what I think made these characters likable, because you have to like the characters eventually. I mean,
Yeah.
you can maybe try to make a movie where we don't come to like them, but it's going to be tough. And I think what happened, and you said that about Ashburn becoming more likable as the movie went along, to me, she kind of reveals to us through that whole barroom drunken scene kind of that her arrogance comes from her insecurities.
Right.
She's very insecure about her life and how her life has been. She had, she grew up in foster homes and she never really felt like she belonged. And so her insecurities are the reason why she acts that way. And I think that makes her, I think that's the thing that makes her relatable to us. Plus, she grows as a character, through her relationship with Mullins. And to me, I'll tell you this. I don't know what you thought about this. I think that one of the things that most impressed me about the writing of this movie was the angle with Mullins's brother. So Mullins has this brother. I didn't actually write down the brother's name. Jason. The brother's name is Jason. And he's played by Michael Rappaport. And he has been a drug addict and all this stuff. And she actually, we find out, is the one who arrested him. When we meet him, he's on his last day in prison. She's the one who arrested him. And so her family's all mad at her because she arrested her own brother. But what we find out, and she has some really like emotional, like acting moments. And what we find out is that even though she is the one who arrested her brother, she was doing it because she was trying to get him away from the crowd he was running with, trying to help him get clean, which Sandra Bullock is like, actually a lot of people who go to prison, it's when they get addicted to drugs. And it's like this really funny moment where she's like, is that what you want to be saying to me right now? It's really funny. But so anyways, I just found a lot of the stuff with her brother, and like she's really concerned about her brother, and she's trying to, get her brother away from these bad guys. And the whole movie, she's very protective of her brother. And I felt that added a little bit of emotional depth that maybe you might not expect from a movie like this, that really added a lot to that character, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so. All the family dynamics with her are just kind of funny.
Oh, yeah. So there's a commentary track on the Blu-ray that is the Mullins family talking about the movie. So like, I didn't listen to it, but it says the Mullins family, so I'm assuming they're in character. So apparently they were a big hit. Actually, not to once again skip ahead in the notes, but whatever. There was a plan initially to do a sequel to this movie, which fell through. But then they were apparently going to do a spinoff with the two
brothers.
No, with Gina,
the girlfriends.
Yeah, the girlfriends. Yeah, I don't remember Gina, and there was another one, but the two girlfriends, they were going to get their own spinoff, and I was like, oh, is that still happening? But I looked it up, and the last thing I saw about it was from 2013, so I'm assuming that hasn't happened. But yeah, so that's kind of what I think makes them, even though they have their personality flaws. Also, I should say one thing I wanted to say about this movie is that a lot of the movies I've talked about on this podcast, especially ones that were like earlier in the 80s and kind of when it was first starting, they didn't necessarily know they were doing a quote unquote buddy cop movie. I know Mo and I talked about this when we talked about 48 Hours. Like when they made 48 Hours, they didn't know they were doing a buddy cop movie. This movie, they did know they were doing a buddy cop movie.
Yeah.
Kate Dippold talked about intentionally being really influenced by a lot of buddy cop films. She had talked about, she said, I wrote a few things here. She said, I've seen Lethal Weapon now about 2,000 times. Running Scared and 48 Hours were big ones for me. So those are all great buddy cop movies. I recommend people check out Lethal Weapon, Running Scared, 48 Hours. I was pretty, I liked that. I liked hearing that she was influenced by it. So she was influenced by the genre. So the characters really, like I said, pretty intentionally fit the archetype. You have the uptight, plays by the rules, stick in the mud, played by Sandra Bullock, and you have the like slovenly rogue cop, always in trouble with the brass, foul mouthed, cop played by Melissa McCarthy. So I like that, but I just think that the two actresses, I felt like their performance, they had a really great sense of comic timing, Melissa McCarthy in particular, but actually Sandra Bullock too, seemed to really be able to improvise. There was a lot of improvisation apparently that went on behind the scenes and or that made it onto camera. And I was impressed by them. And I think that's what helped them rise above their just being an archetype.
I feel like Melissa McCarthy, I feel like almost everything she said had to have been improvised. Like it just, I don't know. I feel like a lot of her lines are just, if you're not paying attention, you might miss it. Like the way she delivers it. And it's hilarious.
Well, it's rapid fire and it's almost under her breath to the point where I was thinking, I was trying to think about all the funny things she said. And I was like, I'd have to see this movie so many more times before I could remember every hilarious thing she said.
Early on, she calls Sandra Bullock an angel of the law. I lost my mind. That was so funny. Entirely. It was like early, and she was talking about,
I know when it is. Yeah,
I think it was like right after they're interviewing
Isn't it when they're in the bar? It's when they're in the bar and she's trying to like suck up to her so she can like
steal the file.
Yeah, steal the file. Yeah.
She says you're an angel of the law. I just was like, that is so funny.
Yeah, so I really like that, and I do think once again, I guess I'll just talk about it over and over again. But I just thought that both these people like. They fit their roles, but also I think the vulnerability of the characters, both of them have moments where they're pretty vulnerable, really just kind of helped them. They didn't just feel like archetypes to me. Like when it first starts, you're like, oh, okay, we got the straight man, we got the slovenly rogue cop, but they were those archetypes, but I just feel like they kind of were more than just that.
They give each other like a little bit of a hard time, but actually once they decide they're going to start working together, they don't really have too much. I mean, they kind of have verbal friction, but like, I think what I'm trying to say is they're both pretty good at like letting the other one do whatever they're going to do. And then they're like, okay, now it's my turn to do what I'm going to do.
Yeah, definitely. Like they do that, but, and they slowly learn to work together. It does the thing, which I think helps where like, we see their relationship develop. Like, that when they start out, they can't stand each other. I mean, there's the really funny scene where, where Melissa McCarthy is trying to park and Sandra Bullock just like, obliviously steals her parking spot. I don't know. I feel like it's a really relatable moment because everybody's had some person just be a jerk with traffic and like just be oblivious to it. And you're so mad. And she's so mad. And she's
eating a pepper in the car. Like
I didn't even notice that either. See, that's so
like
funny.
Red pepper.
That's so funny. And so then she has to go park her car and she parks between these squad cars and they're so tightly parked that she's like having to crawl through the windows and she finally gets in. So she like hates this person by the time she gets there. And Sandra Bullock in her arrogant, mode.
Well, she doesn't even know she's going to walk in and see Sandra Bullock interviewing her prisoner.
Sandra Bullock's like, did we meet? And I think that's really funny. So I loved all that. Another thing that's funny is so when Melissa McCarthy's walking in, she busts the side mirror on Sandra Bullock's car, and in one of the special features on the Blu-ray, they showed that like a props guy just like found a couple pieces of junk on the street, and they were trying to figure out what to use, and Paul Feig was like, well, let's use this thing because it actually was just a piece of junk found on the street, and so she picked it up and broke the side mirror out with that. So yeah, I really liked that like there. So now here's the thing, and the real reason that I'm so happy to have a female perspective on this episode, because when we're talking about this movie, we're obviously going to have to discuss the role that gender plays in this movie and also plays in the really action films, buddy cop films in general. And I feel like it's hard for me as like just a dude to sometimes talk about it without getting a female perspective. It wouldn't have been quite the same if I'd just had a couple of dudes on here talking about it. As we've said, this movie is kind of a standout in the buddy cop genre because it features two female leads, which is pretty rare in the buddy cop genre. So I just was curious to get your initial thoughts on kind of the any of that on the having the female leads and how you thought it affected the film and how it fits into the overall film genre?
I guess just my thought is like, if anything, it proves that like there's no reason that two women can't be the leads. Like, this was a super successful film. We both enjoyed it. Like, it holds up. Like, are there any buddy cop films that have like a male female lead, or is it the ones with females, are they just female female?
Well, actually, that's a great question. I think it depends on how far you're willing to go to define. Like, in order
I
to
guess the
make
Zootopia one, I guess you could call it.
in,
That's a male female.
well, yeah. In order to make room on this podcast, I've decided I'm going to play a little fast and loose with the rules. So, like, the first one that comes to my mind is a movie that I really love called Martial Law. It's an action movie starring Chad McQueen and Cynthia Rothrock. It's probably not really what you'd call a traditional buddy cop movie, to be honest, but that was the first one that came to my mind. I'm mostly putting it in because it kind of works and because I love that movie and I want to talk about it at some point on
I
the
mean,
podcast.
I guess if you're talking about like buddy cop films, there's this like policing like undertone, right? Or overtone, if you want to call it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, in real life, there are a lot more male police officers than there are female police officers. So it's not a surprise that it's like more dominated by men.
Well, actually, that's kind of interesting to me because I hadn't considered it from like a real life policing aspect. So I think that's true, but also I think that in the 80s, when the buddy cop genre first kind of started, I mean, there were some before, but there were probably definitely a lot more male cops than female
Yeah.
cops. I mean,
Yeah.
hey, how about maybe, I'm not sure if this counts as a buddy cop movie, but what about RoboCop with
I don't think that counts.
you don't think RoboCop counts as a buddy cop movie? I don't know, man.
No.
I think I'm pretty strongly on the side of buddy cop movie for that movie. Murphy, and is her name Nichols?
I don't know. All I know
feel
is
bad that I
Murphy.
can't remember her name. But anyways, that's male and female pairing. But anyways, in the 80s, there were definitely way more male cops. And I think over the course of time, there are more and more female police officers. And so maybe that's why you can have a movie like this more than maybe would have been accepted at the time. What I was going to say was one thing that I really liked about this movie, and this is where I don't want to like step in it, but I don't like when movies feel gimmicky or kind of like they're throwing the message in your face a little bit. There are movies that I think have tried to kind of do a girl power thing that it almost feels like the point is no longer making a good movie, but the point is making a point. I don't want to throw too many out, but I mean, that it's, I kind of felt like I kind of felt like that was almost a little gimmicky in the Ghostbusters remake. I thought it would have been better to have like a mixed gender team or whatever. It's not a huge deal, but I thought it was a little gimmicky. And there's been a few other movies, but then there are movies like the Mad Max movie. I guess not Beyond Thunderdome. The one before Furiosa, but the one that Furiosa was in. What was that movie called? It was the fourth Mad Max movie. I can't remember. Was it just called Mad Max? I don't know. Anyways, I really liked that movie. But the Furiosa character impressed me because she was a standout character. She ended up getting her own film, strong female character. But it was just like it wasn't like, see, even girls can. It was just like she was just there. She was just part of it. And I was
like
really like
this movie definitely does that. Like, it's just
yeah.
There's these two cops that are good at their jobs and they're women, which is, I feel like, how women operate in the world. Like, we're just people out there doing what we're doing. Like, and we're good at that, just like dudes are good at what they do.
And that's what it really struck me about this movie. So like when you start reading about this movie and when you read the interviews with the filmmakers, Paul Feig, Kate Dippold, all of them would talk about the gender thing. I mean, it was there. It was a big deal to be making a female-fronted buddy cop action comedy. It just was. So it's going to be part of the conversation. But I really liked that, like, it really didn't feel gimmicky. There are times when they discuss being women in a male-dominated field. There are times when they talk about that. There are times when they make very specific, female humor. But it feels the same way as it would if like a dude was making like a dick joke. You know what I mean? Like, it just feels like,
It's just like two friends having a conversation, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I just was really impressed by that. At no point did this movie feel gimmicky to me. And I just really liked that. And so a couple of things I wrote down about this. So for one thing, I wrote down just a little bit about Kate Dippold talking about how she was inspired to write this movie. And she's talking about buddy cop movies here. She said, I always loved them growing up. I have such an early memory of watching Running Scared. And I feel like with every buddy cop movie, there was always this great bond between the two cops. They were really funny and there was great banter and they were so cool, just awesome, running around taking down some drug lord. And I always wanted to do that. In Running Scared, they go down to the Caribbean and there's this montage of them on scooters and there's a different hot girl on the back every time it cuts to the scooter. And it just felt like, I don't want to be the girl on the back of the scooter. I want to be the awesome cop doing this stuff. And I really thought that was cool. Like, I thought that was just interesting. She's like, her point is like, yeah, like ladies should be able to see themselves represented in these roles. But it wasn't like, it was just because why not? You know, Melissa McCarthy was talking about kind of like quote unquote girl humor. And she said, I just think funny is funny. There's no such thing as girl funny or guy funny. You just want the movie to just be a funny movie. And I liked that. And then another thing I wrote that Paul Feig said, he said, what I liked about this one, now, obviously he's had a lot to do with bringing ladies to the forefront of, you know, comedy at that time with things like Bridesmaids, which was a huge smash hit. But he said, what I liked about this one was that it didn't have any of that. He's talking about some of the things that other like romantic female-led movies might have. He said, it's just two professional women in the workforce who are great at their jobs and who are on this adventure. I don't know. So all those things together just kind of summed up better than I think I'm doing of how I felt about this movie. Like, I just think it was great to have a female-fronted buddy cop film, but just to be like, almost like it was just always there. Like, why not do it? You know what I mean? Like, it was like, it felt like it was just like, yeah, sure, this is a natural thing to do. And I like that. The way I wrote it out from me, my own personal thoughts about it was, I said, you know, the gender thing is definitely important, and you have to bring up that, you know, it's great to have representation, and I think it's really important to the genre. But if you end up focusing too much on, hey, there's girl leads in this, what you lose sight of the fact is that it's just a really great, funny movie, and it stands on its own without any of that. Like, if that wasn't even a big deal, this would be a great film.
It's just funny because, like, I was completely unprepared for you to ask me that question. I was like, oh, I don't even have any thoughts about it. Like, it's just a movie, like, it's just a buddy cop movie. Like, it didn't really occur to me to like have special thoughts about it because it had two ladies in it.
Honestly, I think that's great. I think for me, it's just like, maybe because I've been trying to prep, you know, for this and to like talk about the history of the genre. And it's just, there's just so few female-led films in the
Yeah, I mean, that's true. It's true.
And this isn't the only one. I did make a note, you know, there's a movie called Feds starring Rebecca De Mornay and Mary Gross that came out in the 80s. There are some great Hong Kong films, whether or not you want to count them as buddy cop films, I don't know.
With Michelle Yeoh.
With Michelle Yeoh and Cynthia Rothrock. So there are some great.
See that. That sounds fun.
Hey, I know a guy who has them all. So anyways,
the only movie I've ever seen with Cynthia Rothrock is The Last Kumite, which I feel like she was barely in. Yeah,
I guess so, because you know, I know. So like in my mind we had, but then I remembered it was. So I'm a huge Don the Dragon Wilson fan. We watched Red Sun Rising, but she's not in that. Somehow in my mind she was, and I was like, wait, no, she's not. But yeah, so I thought that was so there's those, and then also Miss Congeniality 2. You know. Yeah. Which has been.
That's part of why we had to go to the movie on Friday, because we were laying the groundwork for Miss Congeniality.
Also, in my notes, I was trying to write Michelle Yeoh to talk about that, and I wrote Michelle Yeoh. So that's what Michelle Yeoh is in these movies. And another thing that I just wanted to point out is Kate Dippold said that one of the things she wanted to do in this was just have a movie about female camaraderie. You know, it's a movie just about female friendship. It's not about, you know, like a romance angle or any of that stuff. It's just
I was actually
female friendship.
Thinking about it, and I was like, there's not any real romantic anything. I mean, I guess her brothers have their girlfriends, like Gina and whatever the other girl's name. Well, the only one I know is Gina.
We found out that Mullins has
that's
blazed.
true.
She's blazed quite a trail across Boston.
That's true, because the guy who played David Wallace on The Office is like, in the early part, they encounter him on the street, and he's like, "Hey, we had such a great time," and she's like, "Ugh, get away from me." And then later in the bar, so when the guy talks to her in the bar, that's actually her husband in real life. And
Yeah, you told me that the first time. That's how I knew
he's
that.
always in her movies. He always makes like a cameo in her movies.
I really loved that. I thought that whole exchange was really funny when he comes up to her and she's like, "Oh, great." And she's like, "It's not you, it's me. I need to work on myself. How can I be part of two until I'm a better one?" And like, just the whole thing like was so funny to me. And then he goes
Well,
to
and then
leave.
she grabs his face and makes out with him super hard. And she's like, "I'm being completely clear." Like, no,
Yeah,
you're
right.
not.
She's like, yeah, it was, I don't know. I just thought that was yet another like really funny exchange from her, and just delivered so just her being like, "I can't be part of two until I'm a better one." Like it was just really good. So yeah, so that's enough about the gender stuff. I just wanted to bring it up, and I wanted to get a female perspective on that because I'd wanted to talk about this movie and its kind of place in the subgenre for that, but I didn't just want to have like me and one of my guy friends being like, "Yeah, it's cool. There's ladies in this." So you know, so here's the thing. As I mentioned a minute ago, there was supposed to originally, like almost immediately, there was talk about would there be a sequel to this? And Kate Dippold apparently had an idea. And in some of the interviews I read, she was like, "I'm really excited about it, but I can't tell you what my idea is. But I'm really wanting to do it if this movie's a success," which this movie was a success. But then for some reason that I didn't ever really see in my research, it just didn't happen. Sandra Bullock apparently at one point confirmed that it was, not really happening. She wasn't involved, and so it just didn't happen. And I just want to come out right now and say I really loved this movie. I would love to see more of these characters.
Yeah.
I know it's been 13 years since they made the last one, but hey, they took a lot longer than that between the second and third Bill and Ted movies. This podcast,
So
Stakeouts
true.
and Shakedowns, is endorsing officially The Heat 2. I want to see it. I want to see that movie. So, hey, listeners, write your congressman. You know what I mean? So yeah, I just want to see that. Also, I wouldn't mind seeing the spinoff. Don't really know what that would have been about. Just the two girlfriends of the brothers. But hey,
I
let's
feel
see
like
it.
they were the most uninteresting part of this
That's-
movie.
That's funny. I think people thought they were pretty funny. Especially the scene when like Gina is coming out of her house to go to the
And her boobs are everywhere.
Well, okay, but I mean, like, it's funny that she's like, "You bought me this luggage, this rolly cart, so I could carry my own luggage," and like, I don't know. It was really fun.
The credits, her boobs are in the credits, Wes.
Yeah, I know. I saw that part. But hey, it's better for you to bring it up than me. So yeah, but who knows what that spinoff would have been about? But I'd love to see another movie with these characters.
The one thing so before they go to pick her up and all the family's getting in the van and Joey McIntyre goes, "We're going to Gina's." And I just thought that was so funny.
Yeah. So you had mentioned that to me the other day. And so then when I was watching it, I caught that line as well. It's fun. Everything about this is funny to me. Paul Feig was like, I really wanted to have all the people in the Mullins family be Boston natives so they could have like the right accent and everything. Like the part when he's like, "Are you a knock? Are you a knock?" And she's like, "Am I what?
Are you, or are you not a knock?"
Are you a knock? Am I speaking English? Like, it's just really, that part was all really funny to me. There's so many parts in that I just thought were really
Also,
funny.
all of the like velvet paintings of Jesus playing sports.
Really funny. I loved when the dad was like, so Melissa McCarthy's like, Gina says something and she's like, "Who are you?" And then the other girl's like, "She's my best friend." And she's like, "Who are you?" And like, she had said something. Oh man, where's my phone? I had making my little notes on my phone. I think I had written down something about what she said right there. This is really good podcasting when you have to like look up what she said.
While you're looking that up, I can tell you when we first meet Mullins's mother, she's driving her minivan. So they're like walking down the street and this minivan drives by and there's this woman in it and she's just like flipping them off. And Sandra Bullock's character is like, "Who is that?" And Melissa McCarthy is like, "Oh, my mom." And she's just like, the way she delivers that line, it's like a little bit sad, but like really like just like it's not even a big deal. It's just like, "Oh, it's my mom."
Well, I think that's what's so funny because then Sandra Bullock doesn't know how to react to that. So like, I forgot even what another thing I was going to say at the dinner scene that was really funny to me is, so then the dad gets mad at Gina and he's like, she wore sweatpants to your mom's dinner table. And like I just thought that was really funny to me. And in like one of the cut scenes, there's a she goes, yeah, well, that's a compliment to her cooking. I didn't know how much room I was gonna need to make, or something like that. It was just really funny to me. He's like, she wore sweatpants to your mother's dinner table. That scene was all really funny to me. Which, like, you know, I had sometimes the conversation about these movies can just go without plot by plot, bit by bit plot breakdowns. But I wasn't sure if this one would be like that or not. But we've mostly done topics. It's 45 minutes in to the discussion, and we haven't really discussed the plot of this movie at all. So we can go through it real briefly. I don't think we need to like break it down too much. But so, you know, the movie starts with Sandra Bullock, as we said earlier, on a drug bus. I think that's the very first thing we see, right?
Yeah, it is.
She's like doing this drug bus, and she's
It's in,
so
like New York or something.
she starts in New Jersey, I think. I don't know. Paul Feig said this movie was originally supposed to take place in New York City, and he just decided it would be more fun to shoot in Boston because he likes the city, and he thought that like the people's attitudes and stuff would make up for some comedy, which obviously we got the Are You a Knock Mullins family, so I think that worked out great. But so I don't know. So I don't remember where it was. Somehow in my mind it was New Jersey. Maybe it's New York. I don't know. But she comes in and like she's, as we said, she's like all the other feds can't stand her because she's just so overconfident, and she's really good at her job, you know.
But she's like a showboat about it,
Yes.
which is what makes her annoying.
But she is really good at her job. She finds the drugs and the guns and all this stuff that all the other agents, including the drug dogs, had not found. Oh, you like that?
Well, she just like disses the drug sniffing dogs, and I just think it's so funny because the dogs like look sad.
More than once she disses the drug sniffing dogs. Yeah. The dogs look sad, and so like,
the dogs like.
So then we find out, you know, that Sandra Bullock is trying to that Ashburn is trying to get this promotion, and her boss is like, "Yeah, you're a great agent, but just like I don't know how you're going to be a leader because nobody likes you." And then somehow he ends up assigning her to go to Boston, I guess because they're trying to track down this Larkin. He's like, there's this drug dealer we're trying to track down.
He's like the top dog in the food chain of the drug lord people.
Yeah, so he sends her to Boston, and kind of sort of like the message is like, you need to do well on this if you think you're going to be able to get that promotion. And so then we see Melissa McCarthy's character, Shannon Mullins, doing a prostitution bust, which is a great scene. Like everything about that scene is really funny.
Yes.
You get the guy from Arrested Development,
Buster.
Yeah, thank you.
That's
who's
his
like
character's name on Arrested Development, not his real name.
I should remember his real name. Well, I just watched like the behind the scenes, and they had his name on there, but because he was talking a lot in the behind the scenes for somebody who's barely in this movie. But it's really funny. So he's talking to this prostitute, and then she comes up, and she's like leaning in the window, and she looks very slobby, you know, as she does throughout the whole movie. And she's driving this terrible car, and she comes up, and he's like, "Yeah, maybe you should like get out of here. This is between me and her." And she's like, "Oh," and he's like, "I don't want to buy any drugs from you." And she's like, "Oh yeah." And he's like, "What are you, her pimp?" And she's like, "Nah, just her friend." And then she like flashes her badge at him, and he's like, "Oh, maybe it's a good thing I didn't get those drugs, huh?" And so
they laughed about that for a long time.
Yeah. And then she's like, somehow she finds out about his wife and kids and stuff. She's like, "Oh yeah, good, because I was really worried you were going to tell me you didn't have a wife and like 100 kids at home." And she makes him give her a cell phone, and then she calls the wife, and she's like, "Yeah, well, I got him here on the phone, and that sound you hear is me breaking his hand." And she's like, "Oh, do it more?" She wants me to do it more. And so basically this guy has a really tough time. And then like she
puts him in the back of the car.
Oh, that's right.
She arrests him and puts him in the back of the car. And then she's driving down the street, and she sees these guys sitting on the corner. And I guess she knows the one guy is like a drug dealer.
Yeah, Rojas. And a pimp.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, he's the pimp. And he's like, "Look, I'm just hanging out here." And then he smokes a joint right in front of her. So anyways, she ends up chasing him. And there's this crazy chase scene. She like jumps over a fence. By the way, Melissa McCarthy did that stunt, jumping over that
Nice,
fence.
nice.
There's stuff about that in there.
She just like slams him on the fence. He's got one leg on each side.
Yeah, and there's a part when somebody's worried about her, and in the behind the scenes features, and she just looks and she goes, "Oh no, I love this stuff." So like she did that, and then she said that the guy who, I'm gonna mess his name up. His name is something like Spoken Reasons or something like that. But anyways, they had worked it out where she throws that watermelon at him, and she's like, they had worked that out before, and he had been like, she was trying to like kind of lightly throw it at him so not to hurt him, but she was like, this doesn't look right, and he was like, oh, it's fine, just go ahead and blast me with it. And she's like, so then she threw it at him, and it just like smashed him. And so there's this scene where she's like, it's like must be right after they got it, where like in the behind the scenes she's like, are you okay? And like she's trying to make sure he's all right, but I guess that's probably the one they got in the movie, because she just smashes him in the back and he falls down, and he's like limping. I don't know, I love that scene, and I really liked the few times in the movie that the character of Rojas
Me too.
came up. I just thought he was really funny. I love that he was like smoking weed right in front of her. She's like, what's that? And then later in the movie they go to see him, and they like find him because he's involved in the drugs, and they show up, and he's like, nah, I'm out. And they're like, what do you think we're here for? And he's like, I'm out. I told you. What part of that don't you understand? And then Sandra Bullock immediately goes to his freezer and opens it up, and there's like all this cocaine in there, and he's like, oh, I just bought that freezer. That's not mine. That was in there.
Came with it.
I don't know. I just really like that a lot. You just bought a new refrigerator.
I know, that's what I was just gonna say was,
did yours come with a bag of Coke?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Well, give it a look later and find out. But yeah, so I love that. So anyways, then you get to
right. So Ashburn goes to the police station because she gets pointed to Rojas by the local FBI office. They're like, oh, they just arrested this low-level drug dealer. So go talk to him.
Yeah, and that's when we get the scene that we were talking about earlier, where Sandra Bullock makes her so mad with her parking job.
Yes.
And then we also kind of get a little bit of that's when we first meet Tom Wilson as the put upon police chief,
Biff from Back to the Future.
Yeah, Back to the Future Biff, who's her boss, and apparently it's just like almost running scared from her. He's like, oh no, we don't mess with her collars. Like when
he's
we don't mess
like
with her.
So defeated in his life in every way. I feel like
he's like I got a 5-year-old son who calls me grandpa. I don't know, it's really funny to me. So then, like I said, there's all this stuff, and they have the interrogation scene where you can tell that Sandra Bullock and Melissa McCarthy's characters have very different interrogation styles, to say the least. It's less good cop, bad cop, and more like stick in the mud cop and insane cop.
Can we circle back to the beginning? Because there's one thing. So Sandra Bullock is like alone in her home in New York before she goes, and she's watching TV with the cat, which turns out to be her neighbor's cat. But on the TV, we see 3 things, and those things all come back around. The first scene is like a scene from Foul Play where Goldie Hawn is being attacked by an albino.
Yes.
The second scene is a scene from The Matrix Reloaded where Trinity is fighting an albino. And then the third scene is a how to do a tracheotomy.
Oh, can I tell you that I didn't put any of what you're saying together?
Well, do you remember the first time we watched it and I was like, she's about to give that guy a tracheotomy, and you were like, what? And that's what she starts to do. It's because I had seen it earlier and it was like how to do a tracheotomy, and I was like, this is going to come back around.
I feel like this is why I would be a terrible detective. Like I want to notice things, but I just don't. You want to know what happened to me when I saw that scene both times that we've watched it recently? I went, ooh, look, Foul Play. I love that movie. And then I just stopped paying attention to anything else. I'm just like, somebody jingled keys and I went,
so the first time we watched it in November, I remember you saying it was Foul Play. But the second time I was like, oh, that guy's an albino. And then I saw the second clip and I was like, that's a clip with an albino. And I was like, there's an albino in this movie.
So you want to know something that makes me kind of sad about that? When I can't remember if it was this movie. Maybe it was this movie because it was long after the Da Vinci Code. But like there was some movie that came out and I read this article and it was about like albino people talking about how much that it bothered them that they are represented in films as villains so often. Like they were like,
I could
we are
see why,
villains
yeah.
in movies a lot, and it like referenced the Da Vinci Code and stuff because there's a albino villain in that. And I just kind of I think about that a lot whenever I think about albino villains. I'm like, dang, that's right, they're right about that. That sucks. It's sort of like when some of the old Universal monster movies, like eventually they would be like the vampire, the werewolf, the hunchback, and I'd be like, oh no. That's so sad. Like they're like, so don't do that, Hollywood. But anyways, I'm so glad you pointed that out. Also, I'm glad you brought that up because I totally skipped over that. And that thing about her neighbor's cat is one of my favorite things in this movie. How she loves that cat, and she has pictures with the cat, but it's the neighbor's
not her cat.
And we find out that it's the neighbor's cat because we hear the neighbor call the cat, and she goes away. I really liked that a lot. So then fast forward back to the present. So after they kind of clash over Rojas in the interview scene, that's when we have this bar scene that we talked about earlier, where she kind of like makes nice. Melissa McCarthy kind of makes nice with Sandra Bullock, but it's only because she's trying to take a look at her files.
She stole Sandra Bullock's car keys.
Yeah, that's right, and that's why Sandra Bullock has to go
to the bar. Yeah,
that's right, because she stole her car keys. I don't know. I just think that's funny too. So then she makes this woman think that Sandra Bullock hit her or pushed her or something.
Yeah.
And Sandra Bullock's like, I'm a federal agent. And she's like, I'm a federal agent. I work at the post office. And Sandra Bullock is like, oh, well, I respect what you do for us down there, or something like that. It's a really funny moment. And she says something, but I got to go catch a drink. And she's like, it's like 2 p.m. I don't know. It's really funny to me. She's like, I guess nobody's getting the mail today. I like that. So then is when they find out, I guess through the files. Oh no, they found out from Rojas about Tatiana. Who's his supplier. So they both show up there, and that's when
Mullins visits her brother in jail too.
Oh yeah. See, you told me you had written down the plot as you were going, and I just was drifting along. I was oblivious.
So she goes to visit her brother, and she asks her brother about Larkin because her brother had been like a low-level drug dealer, and she's like, "Do you know this guy?" And he's like, "No, I'm out. I don't know. I'm getting out tomorrow."
Yeah. So wait, is that how we found out about? Oh no, but that's not how we found out about Rojas. That's just another scene that was in there.
Yeah.
We knew about Rojas. Okay.
Yeah.
And so then they go to Tatiana's house. I think that scene's funny, and this, just in case I don't remember to talk about this when I talk about favorite lines later, this is where the toilet humans thing comes up. So they're in there interviewing Tatiana, played by Caitlin Olsen, and she's being very uncooperative, and they're trying to get details. And all of a sudden, Melissa McCarthy kicks in the bathroom door, and there's a woman just sitting on the toilet, and Caitlin Olsen's like, "That's my mother," and she's like, "You've been in here the whole time," and she's got a gun pointed at her, and it's like everybody's screaming. So I don't even remember now what they all say. It's just like she's like, Caitlin Olsen's like, "Get out of my place," and that's when Sandra Bullock is like, "Okay, I think that's enough," and she's trying to like get her out of there, and Melissa McCarthy says, "Who closes the door when they take a dump?" And Sandra Bullock goes, "Humans?" And it's like a throwaway line where she's like, "Humans?" And I just really thought that was so. She's like, "Who closes the door when they take a dump?"
Also,
Humans?
So when Sandra Bullock pulls up at the building where Tatiana is, Mullins is already there in her car, and she's like, "What are you doing here?" And she's like, "I live here." And it's kind of like, it comes off like it's maybe a joke, but then she actually does live here.
Yeah.
They go to her apartment right after they go to Tatiana's.
And Sandra Bullock goes, "Oh, you really do live here?" And she's like, "Yeah." And so she's
it's like a disgusting place.
Oh, it's a dump. All her windows are boarded up, and she's like, "Yeah, I don't have the window carpets or whatever she calls them." And she's like,
also, her refrigerator is just full of guns and ammunition and grenades,
which objectively awesome. That's objectively awesome.
But that's like the first moment where she and Sandra Bullock bond, because Sandra Bullock is like, "Is that a blah blah blah? Is that a blah blah blah?" So she
knows her guns, yeah.
Yeah, and they're she's like, "Yeah," and they kind of just like have this moment.
But then it gets ruined by the hand grenade. She picks it up and she's like, that one ticks. And she's like, gotta pull it down slowly. And then also, this is where another one of my favorite running gags comes up. Melissa McCarthy's like, you want anything to eat? Like, I got a little bit of a sandwich I didn't finish the other day. And she's like, I would rather, I forget what she said. She's like, I'd rather lick the floor. I forgot what she said. And she's like, you could, she's like, well, you don't have to be rude about it. She's like, you could just catch a staph infection from eating it. Like, it's just, that's the first time we hear about that sandwich, not the last time.
No.
So then they go to Club Echo, which is where they're tracking down. Man, I do sometimes forget how we found out about people. I guess from
So they
Caitlin
stole
Olsen.
a cigarette.
Oh,
They stole a
yeah.
cigarette from Tatiana's and they had it DNA tested.
Oh yeah, and that's how they learn about shoot, I can't remember that
Lesoir,
character's name.
Hank Lesoir.
Oh, Hank Lesoir, and they go to the club because I guess he's just known to hang out there.
Yeah.
And that's when they're trying to figure out how to get close to him. And she's like, all right, I'm going to pull the fire alarm. And when he comes out, I'm going to like bump him and then he'll drop his phone and I'll get it and I'll put the bug in. I call it a cop drop. And then she pulls the fire alarm and there's just not wired at all. And I don't thought this was really funny because I'm a child, but she's like, what is this? It's like, and she starts poking it and Melissa McCarthy's like, don't touch that. That's a condom. it's like tucked into this like fire extinguisher. I mean, this fire alarm that's not wired up at all. So then they have to come up with plan B. So they decide they're going to like use their feminine wiles to get close to Lesoir because he's out on the dance floor. So they go in the bathroom. And that's when Melissa McCarthy decides to beautify. I don't know what the term is.
She cuts up Sandra Bullock's clothes. And
She's giving her a really hard time about her clothes.
Yeah.
Too.
She like cuts her pants into shorts and like cuts the sleeves off her blouse.
She says,
And
go ahead. Sorry.
she does not look good. She does not look good.
What do you mean?
I mean, she looks crazy.
Oh,
when
yeah,
they
she
come
looks
out of
crazy.
the bathroom, she looks crazy. And
She for
her
sure looks
hair's all like crazy.
She for sure looks crazy. I think it adds to the scene, but she for sure looks crazy. But I like the part when she like cuts her pants off into shorts and she says something like, everybody loves shorts. And then she's like, what are these? And she's like, these are my Spanx. She's like, what? And she's like, my Spanx. They hold everything. They keep everything where it's supposed to be. And Melissa McCarthy
Like
says,
medically?
she says, like medically? And I think that's so funny. Like medically? And she's like, no, just it keeps everything where it's supposed to be. It's just really funny to me though, because she's like making fun of the whole time about like being dressed like a square. And later when they go to the family dinner at her house, one of the brothers says, so what are you like a Bible salesman or something? Are you selling Bibles?
One of the girlfriends is like, are you a boy or a girl?
Are you a boy or a girl?
It's a fair question.
she apparently like that scene, a lot of that stuff was improvised and Sandra Bullock just had to like go with it. And she was talking about how hard it was because she was like, they're saying the meanest things. And she's like, I can't give anything back. I just have to like take it. So I thought that was funny. But so anyways, they do this whole thing, but like they finally get close to Lesoir and he says something like, he's like, your moves are really weird because Sandra Bullock's dancing with him. He's like, your moves are really weird, but I love it. And Melissa McCarthy's like running defense and she's like shouldering all these women off of him so Sandra Bullock can get close. Oh my goodness. And I almost forgot Chris Gethard is in this scene.
Yes.
And he, as soon as they come out of the bathroom, he says something like, wow. And she says, what? And he's like, I just like the way your friend's shorts are making me feel in my shorts. But like, he's like, sorry, that came out way creepier than I meant for it to. And then
Well, then he's just like kind of like macking on Melissa McCarthy the rest of the time. I feel like
and he's
on the
but
dance floor.
But once again, she's not having it, and
Yeah.
she's just like, no. And so he's really funny to me because he's so clueless. And when they finally are going to do the cop drop, like Melissa McCarthy, I guess it is, runs by, or maybe Sandra Bullock does. They knock his phone out of his hand, so it goes to the floor and they're like, sweet. And Sandra Bullock is just about to get it and do the cop drop and put the bug in the phone, and Chris Gethard picks it up and he's like, here you go, bro. And that guy's like, thanks, bro. So they have to like stick with him way longer. So anyways, they eventually bug his phone when Sandra Bullock is really awkwardly hitting on him at their private table, and then they get called out, and that's when we first meet the DEA agents.
Yes, so they get followed by a van, and you think it's going to be a bad guy,
right? Because it's a chase scene. They do a little chase scene,
but it's
Sandra
actually the DEA agents. One of whom is our albino.
Is our and the other whom is Taran Killam of SNL fame.
Yes.
And so they basically are like, we have the whole moment where it's like a trope in these kind of movies where they have the jurisdictional pissing match and whose jurisdiction is it. And they're like, we've been sitting on this guy for months and you two just walk in here and ruin the whole thing. And it turns out that the albino is like pretty sexist. Like he's pretty,
Yeah, that's
he's
what I
pretty
was about to
misogynistic.
say.
Yeah.
I was like, this is where we get like all of the misogynistic stuff about gender and everything is from the albino. He is a huge jerk.
Yeah, he's basically just like, these ladies are ruining everything. And so that's when they see the video in the DEA van, because they have like apparently a video bug in there.
Yeah.
And that's when they find out that Jason, who's out of prison now, actually is meeting with LeSoir and Julian, who I don't know if we even know him yet, but we see him in the video. So that's when they decide to go to Ashburn convinces Mullins that they need to go talk to him. So and she's basically like, my family doesn't like me because I'm the one who arrested my brother. So they go to family dinner the next day. And as soon as they walk in the door, one of the brothers goes, oh, look at this asshole, which I thought was pretty funny. Like as soon as they come in the door, and so something's going to be up. And so then they give him a hard time, and we've already talked a little bit about how she's like, who are you? And then she sneaks her brother away, and once again, this is a touching part because she finds out that he's like, he's trying to be like, oh, everything's cool. They wanted me to work for him again. And I was like, no, I'm out. I'm going straight. And she's like, why are you wearing a long sleeve shirt? She pulls it up and they've like burned his arm with cigarettes.
Yeah.
And he's like, don't do anything about this. Don't go after I handled it. It's okay now. But she gets really mad. And so she's like, who did this? And that's when she goes to find Mullins. I mean, not Mullins. I read her name. Julian at this like warehouse place. How do they find out where he's going to be? Do you remember that?
Jason tells them about some other guy who was murdered. So
Right.
Julian is like the guy, like an enforcer guy who like cuts everybody up.
Yeah.
Because at the very beginning, Sandra Bullock's boss is like showing her all these pictures of all these like
Right.
mutilated bodies. And Julian is the guy who does that. So they go to the morgue. That's where it was like, they cut out his tongue and shoved it in his butt.
Yeah. And she's like, they put googly eyes on it or anything like that? So they missed a real opportunity.
And then Sandra Bullock makes some joke about being tongue in cheek, and she's like such a nerd about it.
That part was really well delivered though, because it is funny, but it's like just like such a corny joke that everybody's like, oh man, come on. Okay, so that's right.
So, but that body, like the shoes had a powder coating on them.
Right. Yeah.
And so they go back to like the FBI office, and all of the bodies have this powder coating, and they're like, oh, it's like a paint factory.
And that's where we get this really funny scene where they trying to finish they're both trying to finish Marlon Wayans' sentences before the other one. So he's trying to tell him something, and they keep cutting in. And then he goes to say some kind of name, which turns out to be a pretty normal name. I don't remember what it is. It starts with like an S. And they're like, he's like, Marvin's, and they're like, and he's like, what? And then he tells them, and they're like, oh, so not Starvin. And he's like, no, not that. I don't know. I just thought that was really funny. And then they go to this paint factory, which, fun fact, I don't know if it was that scene or a later scene or maybe both, was shot in like this old, the Boston Herald maybe like had moved buildings, and they shot it in this old newspaper place. So like they were talking about how it was like dirty and grimy, and there was no air conditioning in there, so they had to vent all these air conditioning units like vented in there, and they're like, that stirred up all this dust and who knows what else. So apparently it was not a very pleasant experience to film in there. So anyways, they go there and they end up having this like whole gunfight where they like have a shootout.
Mullins kills a guy.
Yeah, Mullins does kill a guy, a bad guy who's going to kill him.
But I was just like, whoa, she just shot him.
Yeah, and then they arrest those two. And then they bring them in, and then the DEA comes in and raises a stink, and they bring them into the FBI office. And so then Ashburn's boss is there, and he's like, you need to just go home. He's upset about this whole thing because they didn't tell anybody before they were doing this, and they got into a gunfight. The DEA's all mad, and he's like, you just need to go home. And this is yet another moment when we kind of start to see the relationship kind of progress between the two of them, because then they go, Melissa McCarthy's like, you want to go get a drink? What's the point of being a cop if you can't have a drink at the end of the day? So they go, and basically Melissa McCarthy is like tricking Sandra Bullock into getting drunk. and, and they end up getting really drunk.
Real drunk. We get a montage.
We get a montage of them just having a real drunken time. They're like doing a dance, which apparently they had a lot of fun doing that dance. There was a whole thing in the behind the scenes where they were like, we didn't want it to seem too good. We wanted it to seem like two drunk girls had been forcing everybody to watch them for 20 minutes, play the same song over and over again, and come up with this dance. And so they're like, they had a choreographer, and we were just like, go away somewhere. We are going to do this. And they just like apparently choreographed it out themselves. And like a lot of it was sort of like made up almost on the fly. And Sandra Bullock was like, Ashburn's character doesn't understand rhythm. So I had to make sure that my dance moves seemed really awkward. I don't know. I just thought it was really fun.
So we also get a really hilarious line from Mullins in this bar scene where, Sandra Bullock is like having these drinks and she's like having a mental breakdown about how sad her life is.
Yeah.
And she goes, I was actually married for like 6 or 7 years. Mullins goes, was he a hearing man? And it was kind of a throwaway line if you're not paying attention, but it's so funny. Because I remember the first time we watched that, you died when we.
I think we had to rewind it.
Yeah,
I think we had to rewind it because I couldn't stop laughing. I don't know, just little lines like that. Was he a hearing man?
The other thing they do is they put like tape on their nose. They tape their noses up, and that makes me laugh because when I was a kid, my mom would sometimes do that, and then she would be like. That was when she would adopt her snooty personality. And she would say her name was Tiffany.
Oh wow!
And it was like a little bit that she would do, and it was funny.
I think that was one of those things that they were kind of improvising. It just kind of stayed in the movie, and I like the fact that we actually don't get an explanation of why they're doing that. Like in some of the behind the scenes stuff that didn't make it in the movie, it was like at one point they were talking about. I want to say they said something about who did your nose job, and then at one point she was like, "I smell bacon" or something like that, and so they were like doing a pig nose. I don't know, but I really like the fact that in the actual movie we don't really find that out. It's just something goofy they did. So the next morning they wake up just like. Well, I say they're hungover. Melissa McCarthy doesn't seem to be too perturbed.
No.
She's playing poker or something at a table, and Sandra Bullock like comes stumbling in just in time to see Melissa McCarthy bet Sandra Bullock's blazer and lose it. And then she's like, "Well, you didn't seem to care when you gave away your car last night." And so they follow this like old guy, and she's like, "You were making out with him all night." And so they follow him outside, and they're like trying to get the car back. But then about that time, they get a call from the brother. Wait. I'm getting things mixed up now.
No, the car. He gets in the car.
Yeah.
And it explodes.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say, because obviously I love a car explosion. It's just one of my great joys in life. But I feel like...
But no, I think Sandra Bullock gets a call from her boss that Julian escaped or something.
Yes, that's right. Yes, they get a call. That's what I was trying to remember. They get a call, and they're like, Julian escaped. And about that time, they're like... He gets in the car and the car just explodes. And bless that guy's heart, nobody seems to be too broken up about that guy passing away in the car.
Mullins goes, your first boyfriend. You two are electric.
Yeah, you two are electric. So he blows up, and that's when they're talking to the cops, and Sandra Bullock gets a text or something or email, and it's a picture of Mullins' family, and that's when they know that Mullins' family is being threatened. So they move them into a motel, and we get this whole hilarious scene.
And that's how they also find out that there's a mole. Julian escapes.
Right. That's yes. So we know there's somebody on the inside that's a bad guy, but we don't know who. So then we get this hilarious scene that they're moving the family to a hotel, and none of them want to do it, and they're like, we have to go get Gina. We're going to Gina's. and they bring like this huge dog. He's like, it's my puppy. I've had him for 4 months. And so it's pretty funny. So they bring them all to this hotel, and nobody wants to be there. And I can't remember exactly when. Maybe I'm getting this backwards, but I don't think so. But at some point, they're off doing something, and the brother, Jason, calls, and he's like, I had to get out of there. I was too bored, and I came down here, and I'm with the bad guys.
Sandra Bullock and Melissa McCarthy, they go to like a Denny's for breakfast.
Right.
And that's where there's the unnecessary tracheotomy. I can't watch it. I couldn't watch it the second time.
I was curious.
I tried to watch.
I was curious if you made it this time.
I did not. I did not. I didn't. It's just so gross. I actually didn't even like let it play. I fast forwarded through that part.
So then you'll miss the hilarious part when Melissa McCarthy is going,
just couldn't do it.
It's like
I was
Sandra
like,
Bullock is doing all this, and Melissa McCarthy's going, and then afterwards, the guy who played Gabe on
yes,
The Office,
on The Office.
he's like, "Yeah, you're a really reckless person. You could have just." He's like, "You're a really reckless person."
Could have gotten the pancake out of his throat.
And he tells Melissa McCarthy, he's like, thank you very much. And he looks at Sandra Bullock and he goes, not you. I really like that part too. So anyways, yeah, so that's when they get the call from the brother, and he's like, I had to get out of there and I'm with the bad guys, but I've kind of like, I'm on the inside now, and so I'll let you know what's going on. And Melissa McCarthy is like, no, get out of there, go back to the hotel. But Sandra Bullock really wants to use him as a mole on the inside of the bad guys. And so that's a part where they really have this kind of falling out, and they're fighting over the phone. And in the end, he tells them where the shipment's coming in. He's like, I'll be there. And she's like, well, we'll be there. And so they go to the Boston Harbor for the shipment that night of drugs. I guess he's like, it's a boat called the Tanked. Yeah. And when it comes up, all the FBI's are there. And when they pull up, it's a party boat.
Yes.
And he's like, the boat was clean. And Sandra Bullock goes, well, it wasn't clean. We found a joint in that one girl's purse, which I thought was really funny. And so then that's when she's like, where's Mullins? And they're like, oh, she had to go to the hospital, some kind of family emergency. We find out that they apparently learned, I guess once again, because the cops have a mole, there's a mole inside the cops who's feeding information back to the bad guys. But we find out that brother Jason got shot, and he's in an induced coma. And so that's when they have this big falling out, because Sandra Bullock put her brother at risk, and she's really mad. And she's like, so are you not my partner anymore? And she's like, no, get out of here. And that's when we have the scene when she slaps the cup out of that nurse's hand. She's like, I'm going to go find the bad guy. So then they break up for a minute. We have one of those scenes where they're like doing their job on their own.
That's apparently where I stopped writing down the plot. I wrote, our buddies break up, and I don't have anything past that. I'll have to remember.
The end. Our buddies break up. The end.
Yeah.
But so they're both just basically going out busting bad guys. But this is when we have our scene where the DEA is going to come in and like take over the investigation. And Sandra Bullock, you're off the case. And they're like, we're going to pick out our own members of the Boston PD to help us, because we don't want somebody like this one. And they put up a picture of Mullins, and they're like making fun of her. And Sandra Bullock walks in, and we have the moment where she's like, that cop that you have up there that you're making fun of is the best cop I've ever worked with. She's better than me. She's better than all of you. And she like really takes up for her. And it's really honestly kind of moving. Like, not to be a softie, but it's very moving.
But then she walks out and the door is glass, and she gives them the double bird across the glass.
I laughed so hard when she slides the double bird and it makes a squeaky sound across the door. I laughed so hard. It's also when Sandra Bullock first tries, like her character Ashburn first tries out swear words. Yeah. And she sounds like me when I'm playing video games and I lose. Like she just throws out like a string of them that don't make any sense. But yeah, I like that. So then they eventually, we come up to Melissa McCarthy's character, who she's found a bad guy, but then another bad guy comes in and gets the drop on her and is like, put your hands up or whatever.
Yeah, she's actually she's doing like old school police work where she's going through all these, like, she's following the chain of where the evidence is taking her to find out who this Larkin guy is. Yeah.
But some bad guy gets the drop on her, and then, wouldn't you know it, Sandra Bullock has somehow found her, and she gets the drop on that bad guy.
And suddenly she looks cool as fuck, man. She's just like, sorry, am I not supposed to say fuck?
No, you can. Like I said, you can. It's not the first one.
She's got like the
here.
Bulletproof vest on, and I don't know. She has like a totally different vibe. Did you notice that? Yeah.
Kinda. I kind of noticed it, but I don't know if I even paid attention to her clothes. I just thought maybe she's had a new attitude, as Patti LaBelle.
Well, she has on like cool cargo pants. She looks like military chic. I don't know.
Well, she's doing swear words now, so she's like I said, she's
so
cool
am I
cop
apparently.
Now. She's cool cop now. So and you're a cool cop, and so that's when they like team back up, and they're like, all right, because that's when she says the name of the movie, right? She's like, me and her, we're the Heat.
Yeah, they actually say it one time earlier in the movie.
Okay.
I don't remember where exactly, but Yeah.
Well, I think that's when Melissa McCarthy's trying to be like, we're the Heat. Like she's trying to like
Yeah.
convince her. And this time she's like, we're the Heat. So then they do another thing that I really love, which is they go down to Melissa McCarthy's apartment and they just like have this moment where they play like military dress up, and they just like, it reminded me of Commando when Arnold Schwarzenegger is like putting on all his gear to go blow everybody in the world up, and that's what they do here. And I like scenes. I don't know, it's just another one of those things like exploding cars where I'm like, yes please, show us a scene where you're putting on every gun in the world. I love that. And then she picks up the grenade, and Sandra Bullock goes, not that one, you said it ticks. And she goes, not for days. I wasn't even really sure what that meant. I just really liked it. Not for days.
I was a little disappointed. So like when they first go and they're looking at all the weapons in her apartment, the first time we're in her apartment, she has like a rocket launcher.
Yeah.
But that never comes out again.
They broke the rule at Chekhov's rocket launcher. We want to see that rocket launcher get used.
But it doesn't get used.
Sad. Shame that. And so
actually maybe it does.
I don't remember. I don't remember.
No, it's the grenade. It's the grenade that gets used.
Yeah, right. Sure. Yes, right. Because
it was like the whole ring thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're so then they go to this warehouse, and how do they know where to go for that? Do you know? I mean, it doesn't matter if we don't know.
Maybe the one of the drug dealers tells them.
Rojas again, right? I think it's Rojas again.
Yes.
Because they come. That's when we get the scene where he's like, "I'm clean," and they're like, "What's this drugs in your?" He's like, "That came with the freezer." So then they go to the warehouse and they have this final fight scene, which is pretty cool. Like you said, they're like blowing people up. Because there's all these bad guys that keep like showing up. Because at first they're like 2-on-2. I like those odds. Which is the second time in the movie they said that, and the second time it hasn't worked. And so then all of a sudden all these dudes come out. She's like, "How many? You guys are all coming back from break at the same time?" And so Sandra Bullock is actually is it Sandra Bullock or Melissa McCarthy's character here who's the quick thinker? I think it's Sandra Bullock's character. Yeah, because she's like, we're putting our guns down.
Lesoir, whatever his name is.
Yeah,
he shows up. And she was like, "Oh, I guess you guys are engaged now." And he's
because she's like, "Put your guns down, and we'll throw you the bag with all our stuff." And Melissa McCarthy's character, if she doesn't know what's going on, she's like doing a great job pretending. She's like, "You suck," she's mad that she's putting their guns down. Well, then when they slide the bag over, I guess she must know what's going on because they slide the bag over. Melissa McCarthy's character says, "Well, it looks like you guys are engaged now," and he's like, "What?" And she's like, "Because you put a ring on it or something." And Sandra Bullock has pulled out the grenades. The ring, and so then the bag just like blows up because it's got all those weapons in there and blows all those guys up. But then there's like another bad guy, and Melissa McCarthy's like, "How many of you are there?" So eventually they get tied up. Julian, I keep wanting to call him Stuart from Mad TV, but Julian is tied them up. Oh, we totally skipped over the scene where at some point they were interrogating Julian, and Melissa McCarthy played Russian roulette with his crotch.
Oh yes,
which we found out later that she said she'd taken all the bullets out, but we'll get there. She made out like she only took out 5 of the bullets, and she clicked the gun 5 times on his crotch, and that's when he told him everything they want to know. And so anyways, now he's got them tied up, and he's like, "Now I get to interrogate you," and he's got all these knives, and he like pulls out a little tiny oyster shucking knife, and he's like getting ready to torture him, and he's like, "Oh, the boss is here. I've got to go see Mr. Larkin." And he's like, "Hold this knife." And Sandra Bullock's like, "My hands are tied up," and he slams the knife into her. Oh. I know, even I was like, yikes. And so she's got this knife sticking out of her thigh, and so then they're going to try to get out, and Melissa McCarthy is like worked around, and she's like, "I got to get the knife out." And so she pulls the knife out, which I was worried about. I was like, why is this leg not bleeding? But once again, it's movie logic. And so she's like used it to cut her wrist ropes, and then Julian starts to come back, and she's like, "Oh no, I've got to put the knife back." And she's like, "What?" And she's like, "I got to put the knife back." And she stabs her one time, and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was gonna be so hard to get it in there." And she stabs her again. So now Sandra Bullock's been stabbed 3 times in the
leg.
Yeah,
it reminded me of Talladega Nights when Ricky Bobby thinks he's paralyzed, and he stabs himself in the leg with the steak knife.
I didn't even think about that. That's funny. And so, but then they pull a fast one. Melissa McCarthy's hands are
Well, no, the DEA guys come in. It's not Julian.
Oh, right. Okay, thank you. Right, the DEA guys come in, and that's when we find out, dun dun dun, that the
And they're like, "What are you doing here?" And they say, "We followed you. We knew you wouldn't leave the case alone." So they followed them to the. That's how they found out where how the
oh
DEA guys found out where the
yes,
stuff
and
was.
then she says he says the albino's giving her a hard time. And he says something about your brother getting wasted, and she's like, well, something about he's in a coma. And that's when all of a sudden Taron Killam's character is like, wait, he's not dead? And she's like,
Yeah.
no. He's like, what hospital's he in? And she's like, what are you gonna send him a card? And all of a sudden they put together, they're like, you're Larkin. And he's like, I really wish you wouldn't have said that. And he shoots the albino.
Yeah.
And Melissa McCarthy's like, so it wasn't the albino. I kind of feel bad for that guy, or something like that. And he's like, no, he was just a huge sexist, or something like that. Like Taron Killam's character, he was a misogynistic jerk. And so then we find out he is the bad guy. And honestly, I have a hard time remembering how this fight scene, this final scene, ends, because Julian comes back and I know, because Taron Killam is like, I got to go take care of Jason. You take care of these guys.
Yeah.
But then how do they get free from Julian?
Because Melissa McCarthy has cut her ropes.
Right, her
and
ropes.
so
Right.
they just like attack him.
So
She
now she
attacks
does the
him.
trick. Yeah.
And then he's like gonna go after her, and Sandra Bullock like trips him with her. She's still tied to the chair, so she
Yes.
like throws her chair in front of him with
And
her
that's
body.
when I was trying to remember, because that's when he gets Sandra Bullock and he's like, you can't, he's using her as a human shield. And Sandra Bullock like does a back headbutt into his nose.
Yeah.
And I was trying to remember that because she was like, oh, I think I'm going to throw up. And Melissa McCarthy goes, yeah, that was a bad headbutt, but you did real good. You did real good. And so then they go to the hospital, and there's this whole funny scene where like they go into the hospital, and Sandra Bullock can't get in there because her leg's been stabbed 3 times, so she's struggling to get in. Melissa McCarthy runs in, and she's like, the blonde nurse once again is at the desk, and she rips the phone out of her hand and throws it against the wall, and she's like, get off the phone.
Because they've been trying to call the hospital.
Oh yeah, right. So another thing in the behind the scenes, they show that scene, and they're like, she just maybe kind of sort of improvised that, and she like picked that phone up, she's like, get off the phone, and she throws it, and it apparently broke this lamp and shattered the phone.
Oh
And
my gosh.
Melissa McCarthy turns around and she goes, I hope you got that, or something like that. She's like, did you get that? So then they go to the room. Taron Killam's in there. He threatens to like inject oxygen, air into her brother's, which will kill you. And so he's got the drop on her with like his gun, and she's like, she sees Sandra Bullock like crawling down the hallway. And so she's like trying to distract him. She's like, I get why it's hard to be on the job, and your moral lines start blurring. You see all these bad guys, and you start thinking, are they the bad guys or am I? And she's like, you don't have to do this. He's like, I don't, except the fact that I have plans, and none of them involve going to prison. And so all of a sudden Sandra Bullock like manages to slide in, and she's got her gun, and she's like, and they're like just a moment where they're holding their guns on each other, and he's like, drop your gun, and she's like, you drop your gun, and he's like, no, and he says something, and she doesn't even wait, she just goes boom boom, fires off 2 shots right into his groin, like shoots him right in the crotch, and he like falls. And that's when Melissa McCarthy's like, whoa, you shot him twice in the crotch. And she's like, yeah. She's like, I learned it from you. And she's like, yeah, but I never did it. I'm not a psychopath. I'm not a crazy person. She's like, but you held the gun to Julian. And she's like, I take out all the bullets. So I just used it to scare people, but you really did it. But no, you did great. You did great. My thought there in seeing the behind the scenes was, did Taron Killam have to have squibs attached to his crotch?
I never even thought about that. But I guess so.
did.
I guess so.
did.
I would think that would still hurt.
Dude, it definitely would hurt. So I used to listen to, everybody should listen to the I Was There Too podcast. It's an older podcast now. So good. But the host was obsessed. I should know his name. Who knows how many? Matt Gorley. He was like obsessed with squibs. And so he would always ask people about squibs. And one day he got somebody to explain to him, and they were like, oh, it still hurts. Like if you get squibbed, it still hurts. It's an explosive thing. So that's my first thought. I was like, did he have 2 squibs on his crotch? But anyways, so he gets wheeled out of there, not having a great day. And then we kind of start wrapping it up. They've had their like buddy moment. They're walking out of the hospital, and they're like, Sandra Bullock's like, should we be leaving the hospital? And she's like, no, spin around. And so they put her on a stretcher. Marlon Wayans comes in, and like basically him and Sandra Bullock hit on each other.
Yeah, because he like comes in and he's like got the situation handled. He's like, I'm in charge. You guys do this stuff. You guys do this stuff. And she thinks that's really hot.
Yeah, and then she like somehow props her like wounded body up in like a hot girl pose, and he's like, "Take care of this lady. She's one of the FBI's best agents." And oh no, she says something about she says, "Are you good?" And he's like, "Are you good?" And she's like, "I'm good." And I laughed. Melissa McCarthy goes, "I'm good too," because they're like hitting on each other. Melissa McCarthy goes, "I'm good too."
Completely missed that one.
It's really she's like, "I'm good too." And so then Melissa McCarthy is getting an award, and Ashburn, Sandra Bullock, has convinced her family to come because they've not been proud of her for being a cop this whole time, but now they are proud of her.
Are they though? I feel like
they
the
support
mom
her.
especially is still not proud of her.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the joke. But the family comes and supports her at the award ceremony is what I'm saying.
Yes,
she's really happy they're there because they're like, hold it up, and she holds it up. So I think they're being supportive. Then we find out that Ashburn has been moved to Boston. And she's like, "Did you get the package I sent you?" And it's a really sweet moment because we found out earlier that Sandra Bullock's yearbook only had 2 signatures, both from teachers. And I wrote one of them down. I wrote one of the things down. It said, "See you next year, student." that's the line. So anyway, she's written a vulgar like F you or something in the front of it. But she's like, "Now look at the back. Don't make it weird." And it says like, "Foster kid, now you have a sister." And it's very sweet, very touching. And then she makes some kind of joke. And then Melissa McCarthy goes, "Yeah, you made it weird." And she hangs up. And that's basically the end, right?
Well, Melissa McCarthy brings her cat.
That's mid credits. So that's what I was going to get to. Another one of my favorite things. Oh, we totally left out that there's another part later where for some reason she's like, at the end, I think when she's leaving her in the hospital, she's like, "You want me to bring you that sandwich?" And she's like, "The same sandwich you offered me 5 days ago?" And she's like, "It's cheese. It doesn't go bad." But so then we get to a scene that I really loved, which is at the very end, like partway through the credits, there's a knock on Sandra Bullock's apartment door. And Melissa McCarthy's like, I felt bad about your cat. Because she told her earlier, she'd seen the picture earlier of the cat. And she's like, "You got a cat? Where is he? I'd love to pet the little fella." And she's like, "Oh, he ran away. It's really sad." Because then we get this whole thing where Melissa McCarthy's like, "It's so sad. He looked at your sad life." And he was like, even that cat was like, "I don't want any of this." She's like, "I don't want any of this. Even the cat ran away. It's so sad." And she's like, I felt really bad. She's like, "So I went and I was looking all around and finally I heard this jingle and I looked in the window and there was this cat sitting in your neighbor's apartment. So I went in and I got him." And she's like, "I brought him back to you." And there's this awkward moment. And she's like, "It was never your cat, was it?" And she was like, "No." And she's like, "I got to go take it back to their neighbor now, to you put it in your neighbor's apartment now." I loved that callback.
I thought it was funny. So the first time that they're at Sandra Bullock's apartment, Sandra Bullock is in her pajamas, and Melissa McCarthy's like, "Let's go," and she's like, "Well, I got to change," and she's like, "Why?
What's wrong with your pantsuit?"
Yeah,
she says.
She's like, "They're pajamas,"
and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Go get your top hat." That was really funny. As a person who loves to wear a matching top and bottom pajama set, it just feels really nice.
You do.
It just feels really nice.
Do you wear a monocle too?
Of course I wear a monocle. But it is I thought that was really funny. She's like, your pantsuit. Well, go get your top hat. So that's pretty much the Heat. I feel like I'm trying to think if there was anything else I really needed to talk about. Anything else you really wanted to talk about?
No, I was most proud of my observations of the TV clips and the albinos and the.
Honestly, I was very impressed by that.
That's what I was. Because I had texted you and said, I have one thing that I'm actually really proud that I observed, and that was it.
You did great. So usually I talk about the film score because, as you know, I'm obsessed with film scores. I didn't have a lot of thoughts about this film score. I thought it was a good score. It just wasn't anything that jumped out to me, and I don't know a lot about the composer, whose name I said earlier, but we'll say it again, credit where credit's due, Michael Andrews. Did you have any thoughts about the score from the movie?
No, I didn't really even notice it. I don't feel like.
Yeah, it didn't really stand, but it fit the movie. It was a fine score. I will say that the songs that were chosen for the movie, apparently Paul Feig was like really intentional about choosing the songs, and he was like, he's like, I'm gonna have to watch this movie 100 times to make it, so I want to really enjoy the music. And he's like, every song in this movie is like a desert island song for me. So apparently he really was careful about choosing all the music and all the songs.
That's cool.
For this. Yeah. So finally, I will do my little buddy cop crossovers thing. I didn't have as many this time, not really trying to force it, but I will say Sandra Bullock, star of Miss Congeniality 2, debatable amongst some people in our friend group whether Miss Congeniality 1 counts as a buddy cop movie.
It does not.
It's in debate in our friend group. But Miss Congeniality 2, definitely a buddy cop movie. So she's in that. Marlon Wayans is in White Chicks. And apparently Melissa McCarthy.
Is that a buddy cop movie?
Oh, yeah. I've never seen it, but it's listed as a buddy cop movie, and I mean, if you read the plot, it seems like it is. So it's on my buddy cop list on Letterboxd. And Melissa McCarthy apparently had a small role in Central Intelligence, so that was the ones I had there. So yeah, so that's pretty much it. Crystal, thanks so much. This was a blast.
It was fun.
I am going to plug the podcast socials, but I just wanted to say, like I said, thanks again for coming. I was really glad you wanted to do this. I really enjoyed watching this film with you, and I enjoyed getting to discuss it. And it was great because you definitely followed the plot a lot better than me, apparently, and noticed some things that I didn't notice. I watch movies and I'm like, yeah, then they punched him, and then there was a funny joke, and then it blew up, and then there was a sidekick.
The first time we watched it, we just watched it. And then when I watched it earlier this week, then I was like, I'm going to write some things down because I'm not going to remember how this goes.
And the second time I watched it, pretty much I just watched it again because I was just like, I don't want to write. So anyways, I did want to plug some things. First thing that I wanted to plug, this is not even my thing. I just really care about this project. There is a film. I'm a huge Sam Furstenberg fan. Sam Furstenberg, the director of such classics as Revenge of the Ninja, my all-time favorite ninja flick, American Ninja 2, Cyborg Cop, Avenging Force. One of my favorite directors. Steve James, one of my all-time favorite action stars, starred as the sidekick to Dudikoff in the American Ninja franchise. He was in Blood Fist 5. He was in The Hero and the Terror with the late, great Chuck Norris. Big Steve James fan over here. So anyways, there's a film called Riverbend. Riverbend was one of the few movies that Steve James got to star in before he passed away tragically early. It has been what's called an orphan film. It has been one of these movies that was only ever released limited on VHS for a while. My dear friend Mo, who was on the first episode of this podcast, acquired one of these VHS tapes, and we watched it together a while back and really loved it. So both he and I have been really following this project where Real Black Cinema, that's REEL, like a film reel, Real Black Cinema has been working to do a 6K restoration of Riverbend. And so there is a Kickstarter.
6K?
You know what? That's a great question. That's, as a VHS collector, I have a hard time explaining the all the different specs
expect
to
you to actually explain it to me, but like I've never heard of that.
You know who could probably explain it to you is Mo. So ask him next time. It's a 6K. It's a 6K restoration. And it's coming out on Blu-ray. I'm an early backer of this project. The Kickstarter only has about 63 hours left, or probably at this point 61. So by the time this episode comes out, it probably won't still be up. I just would encourage everybody to follow this project. I just got, while we were recording, the announcement that they are showing it here in Raleigh. They are going to be doing cinematic screenings across the United States. I just really want people to check out Riverbend, check out Real Black on Instagram, and just follow this project. I think you'll really enjoy it if you like action films, and it's going to be real great to have this movie released on Blu-ray. So I just wanted to plug that. Plug the socials for the podcast. We're on Instagram at Steak and Shake Pod. That's STAKE. We have the person on the podcast right now who thought that up for me. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You can follow me on Instagram at Cliff Weston, and you can follow me on Letterboxd. My name on there is _Strongbow. As we've mentioned, hey, I would love for you to just keep up with what I've been watching, but also I do have a very comprehensive list of buddy cop films on Letterboxd. So check that out as well. And until next time, y'all be cool. Right on.